Hello, this is I Go Travel with Don Barnett. We've been looking around this Tucson area and we're going to look a little bit more, but we're heading for the Old West side of this southern Arizona country. We'll take a look at the old studio, the old Tucson Studio, and then we're going to jump in the old truck and head for the Mexican border to Nogales. And we get down there, makes me feel good. I might even sing you a song. Come along. Old Tucson Film Studio and Theme Park is where they made over 400 feature films and TV shows since 1939. It offers tours, horse and stagecoach rides, musical shows, informative demonstrations, and plays involving things like gunfights, fistfights, hangings, and bank robberies of the Old West. This building has served as a setting for both a hotel and a bank. Rose's Cantina here has made it into many Western TV and movie shows. The U.S. calls its Old Western drinking bars saloons. Their counterpart in Mexico are called cantinas. Same place, same booze to drink. This employee described poker playing in the old days and pointed out that cards did not have numbers in those days because most people were not educated enough to read numbers. Here is one of the live performances we watched in one of the halls. And this is a sign of other times and other rules. Copper pots called the spittoons were offered in the lobbies of most hotels back in those days. This old steam locomotive and the stagecoach here played in several of the more popular movies of old westerns in the past. The movie studio set at Old Tucson was Hollywood, before Hollywood. It survived a disastrous fire years ago and was rebuilt to continue entertaining its many visitors over the years. If you're in Tucson, it's worth a stop. We had to put the truck in low gear and climb to the top of the mountain to get to this next tourist attraction, an hour or two outside of Tucson. Kitt Observatory has been a world forerunner in astronomy. Like many observatories, it is located on top of a mountain where the air is clear, but as you can see by these coats we had on, it was windy and cold the day we were there. Its powerful telescopes are moved only by machine trolleys. The telescopes enable both nighttime astronomy and daytime studies of the sun. Today, more powerful modern telescopes can be found in a few other places in the world, but Kitt Peak is still an ongoing operation, and the guided tours are interesting and informative. Historic Spanish Catholic churches with grand designs are part of this country. This one here in South Tucson is unique in that they ran short of funds when it was being built and never finished it, as you can see by the square unfinished tower on the right. The insides of these churches are ornate and unique. You can arrange for tours of these historic Spanish cathedrals, and those tours are offered across southern Arizona and into northern Mexico. We were there during a cold snap, and it snowed much to our disgust, but I tell you, cactus and the snow-topped mountains made a unique sight. I just have to show you this photo taken by a friend of mine in faraway Palm Springs in California. There it is, palm trees combined with snow. Rare, unique, but it can happen. The Mexican border at Nogales is about 2 hours from Phoenix and only an hour from Tucson. There are a couple of small communities between Tucson and the border. One is Tumacacory and the other is Tubac. Tubac is a site for community events and a touristy, artistic area that is right along the highway. There are a number of high-end shops that offer a great variety of items of American Southwest art. Originally, Tumacacory and Tubac and Tucson were horrible and dangerous Spanish outposts in the midst of hostile indigenous tribes, cactus, desolation, and overbearing heat. Spanish soldiers from Mexico City dreaded being assigned to the area, calling the 3 twos, T-U, you can see them underlined in white here, Tumacacory, Tubac, Tucson, moving upward with the yellow arrows on the road to hell. But today, peaceful times and conveniences like air conditioning, electricity, modern houses, paved roads, fast cars, all make it a desirable place for Arizonians, tourists, and snowbirds alike. It's a very pleasant, warm place to spend the winter. Patagonia is a nearby recreational and birdwatching state park, but we were not there during the migration season, so we did not see very many birds. Nogales, straight south of Tucson, is a major border city on the road to Mexico City and other places south in Mexico. Elevation is quite high, and it is quite a hilly city. It is also very Hispanic, and we walked across the border to do a little sightseeing and shopping in Mexico. There was a lot of tourist merchandise, and bartering prices was the normal way of financial transactions. And now I'm accustomed to bartering prices of things, and I don't mind it at all. In fact, often it is kind of fun to negotiate prices. For one thing, you get to know the person that you're buying from. Even hills do not stop the border wall. There was considerable displeasure about the razor wire on both sides of the border that was hung along the top of the wall. Some felt it posed a danger to the American side since the wire hung on the U.S. Side of the wall. As usual, there was an uninterrupted walk across to the Mexican side, but coming back, there was always a long line up like this, and a long wait time as U.S. border guards meticulously checked everyone's intent and paperwork. The Mexican-American border is really not a friendly border. It's been a lot of history and hostility over the time. And we were in a long lineup with a fella in a wheelchair. And after about an hour there, some people in the line said, if you ask the guards, they'll let you go on through rather than have that fella sit in that wheelchair for another hour or so. So we did that, and we went up there, and the guard, a woman said, we'll let him through and his wife, but you and your wife cannot go through. And we said, well, he'll have to wait another hour or so in his wheelchair just on the other side of the fence. And she says, well, that's up to him, isn't it? And so he decided to go on through with his wife, and they waited about an hour and a half, and he had sores from sitting in that wheelchair. But it just goes to show you that, the border there, the U.S.-Mexican border, there's not a lot of give sometimes, and you're better to just keep your hat on and drop your eyes to the ground and work your way through it. We drove west along the American side of the border, out into the wide open spaces and somewhat isolated areas. A former ranch had been converted into a wildlife refuge along the border. In the old days, isolated ranches out here were susceptible to Indian attacks and cattle raiding. Bands particularly like the Apache and Comanche and others, were feared for their annual cattle raids. I took this photo from the front porch of the old ranch house. This high peak had a special religious meaning for the early indigenous people in the area. The raiding Indian bands learned to not kill all the white ranchers or their families, or take all of their cattle. If they did, there would be nothing to raid the following year. But leaving the people and some cattle meant there would be a supply to raid again next year. It was a system and an understanding that worked back in those old cowboy pioneer days. We drove through several checkpoints like this one here, but they always recognized old tourists like us and waved us right on through. With no border wall in remote areas like this one, patrols chased illegal border crossers by truck and by quad. Not everyone favored the border guard approach and felt sentiment for those having to do the walking and running. Death and injury frequently occurred out in the desert here, from accident, getting lost, and from thirst. This sign along the highway attached to a fence expressed this kind of sentiment. I'd like to be able to give you a feel of the border in the old days. It's always been a hostile kind of a place. And this is kind of a little story that I'll tell you and sing you a little song along with it as it goes. But it's about a young American gunfighter in the old days, the 1880s, and he had a girlfriend across the border. And he'd go down and see her, but he was wanted by the Mexican police, the federales, as they called them, the federal police down there. And he liked to drink tequila and go down there and celebrate with her. And he'd sneak down across the border. So just follow along. It's a little story of the border. Pour me another tequila, Sheila. Take off that red satin dress. I crossed the border and I beat the dealer. So pour me another tequila, Sheila. I feel like old Pancho Villa, Sheila, and I got the pesos to spend. So pour me another tequila, Sheila, and lay down and love me again. Sheila, I'm hearing your heartbeat, but I'm hearing footsteps outside. The courtyard is crawling with federales, and Sheila, there's nowhere to hide. I don't know who could have tipped them, because nobody knew but you. And I can't make love to a squealer, Sheila, so I guess there's just one thing to do. Pour me another tequila, Sheila. I'll put on your red satin dress, and you put on my boots and shirt and vest. And you go out and face the dealer. And Sheila, I wish you the very best. Get me a horse and hitch him outside and ready to ride. And maybe I'll be back to make you my bride. I feel like old Pancho Villa, Sheila. Right now I need a fast horse and a friend. So pour me another tequila, Sheila, and I'll ride, whoa, for the border again. Okay, hope you enjoyed that travelogue. Danger and safety is a personal question, and I've always felt safe down here in this desert country, and I hope you'll maybe come down and take a look at it. If not, we've got some more travelogues, so hit the subscribe button and the thumbs up, and we'll see you on down the trail. Adios, amigos.